I Know What You Did Last Summer is the latest slasher movie in theaters. This time around, following Ava and her group of friends on the 4th of July when they accidentally caused the death of somebody on the road. Agreeing to never speak of it again, a year later, they will mysteriously be haunted by a fisherman, letting them know, I know what you did last summer. And that's all. Putting aside any spoilers, you guys, this will be a spoiler-free review. I think you are going to want to stay away from spoilers, and once this movie's releasing, I gots to do a spoiler review on this one. But okay, talking about the I Know What You Did Last Summer franchise, this is a guilty pleasure slasher film for me. It's kind of funny because I don't know where I Know What You Did Last Summer ranks in the pantheon of horror movies. I don't think it's as prestige or as popular as Scream, another Kevin Williamson written movie, since Kevin Williamson also wrote the original I Know What You Did Last Summer. But I also don't think of it as like bottom of the barrel cult trashy horror like a Leprechaun franchise. It's somewhere just right in the middle. It was iconic enough to have a sequence in Scary Movie, but I don't know if there were very many people like yelling for I Know What You Did Last Summer needs to return. And I gotta admit, whenever the trailers started coming out for this movie, I was a little baffled. We've seen this legacy reboot trend happen a lot with Scream 5, Halloween 2018, movies that are supposed to be a new start for a new generation, but they always bring in legacy characters just to do the bare minimum and please the older fans. And honestly, this was no different, but it seemed a little more odd because for the premise of I Know What You Did Last Summer to work, a whole bunch of checklist items need to happen. Group of friends out on a certain road, 4th of July, causing an accident on somebody, agreeing never to talk about it, and then waiting a year later for them to get notes. It's like there's a whole bunch of steps involved other than, oh, Michael Myers escaped from an asylum on Halloween, coming after you. Someone else puts on a ghost face costume and starts making a call, going after you. So I was definitely reserved, but hey, I'm always down to see a new slasher movie in theaters, so I was just kind of wanting to have a good time. Having sat through and watched the movie, buddy, oh boy, I am conflicted. There are so many things I actually like and I think are kind of ballsy about this movie, which is what I really want to talk about in spoilers. But kind of dancing around the things I did enjoy and then getting to the things I really didn't like about this movie. Let's start off with the main thing, the kills and thrills that make a slasher movie. And I think for the most part, that is kind of the funnest part of this film. You can tell director Jennifer Caitlin Robinson is not only a big fan of the original I Know What You Did Last Summer, but she's also a fan of slasher movies because she plays on that expectation a lot. She creates sequences where if you've seen enough horror movies and slashers, you know exactly where the killer's gonna come from, where the jump scare is going, and a lot of that can be repetitive, cliche, and just so boring. But she has fun with a lot of the chase sequences, and the killer, the fisherman, is very brutal. It's not overly gory, but it's enough where you definitely feel the pain of a couple of victims, and I even like the added touch that although a chase sequence happens, sometimes a character will get away, other times the character will die, and seeing that happen on and off did make it fun for me. Because I Know What You Did Last Summer also plays on the whole guessing who the killer is, this one also had a decent attempt at keeping you on your feet, giving you enough clues and hints to who could be behind the mask or why they could be doing it. I think there will be several people guessing until the very end when the mask is revealed, but even with me saying that, there will always be that handful of people going, I guessed it right away, I knew right away. And I think the movie does slip up a couple of times in making it obvious, but it's also where they make it so obvious that it could be anyone else, you do start to doubt who you think it might be. And really, that's all some people are gonna need, right? Is brutal kills, fun chase sequences, an interesting enough mystery where the reveal is not average. It's got that there. But there's other baggage involved with this movie that leads me into the mixed. Some of the things I'm bringing up I liked, but I also know they're going to be negatives for other people. Starting off with the humor and characters. I think for the most part, I Know What You Did Last Summer has pretty bland characters. I did like the main girl Ava, played by Chase Wonders. I think she does a good job. But if I'm being honest, the real standout MVP was Madeline Klein. This, unfortunately, is going to be a character you either love and root for, or you hate and want them to die immediately. I think Madeline Klein's character is honestly a good litmus test for whether you come out enjoying this movie or hating it. Reason being is because a lot of the humor attached to the film is kind of Gen Z or TikTok humor. A lot of that stuff where they throw in modern lingo with phrases like, it's giving outdated. Oh, they're so gaslighting you. And it goes on and on from there, and you either roll with it because the movie is intentionally campy and cheesy. It's trying to emulate that throwback vibe you would get when watching a film from the 2000s or late 90s that was a slasher movie. I can appreciate that vibe, and I think at times they do capture that camp well, but I'm fully aware that type of humor and tone is not gonna be for everybody. Madeline Klein to me though did have me laughing so much, and I ended up really loving her character. She's kind of the biggest thing swaying me into like, I just had fun with this and that's all I should care about. But aside from these two characters, really everybody else I just thought was so bland, one-dimensional, could not care all that much for. When we get onto the legacy sequel aspect part of this, I think it still runs into a lot of problem that other legacy sequels have. Whether it's Laurie Strode or Sidney Prescott, sometimes this forced use of having the old stars be thrown into this story just does not always fit. I will admit they do more unique things with them than other legacy sequels done, and that'll kind of be the real standout of this film. But your enjoyment of these legacy characters and really the movie as a whole will be how big of a fan are you of the old I Know What You Did Last Summer, because the big problem this one has that other legacy sequels do is, although they're trying to usher in for a new audience, although they're trying to make a name for themselves and stand apart from the films that came before, it is still super reliant on nostalgia, callbacks, and references to the original. And look, to some people, they're gonna love that, because if I Know What You Did Last Summer is one of your favorite slashers, you're gonna be pointing at the screen Leonardo DiCaprio style going, oh, they did it, oh, they said it, oh my god. But there are plenty of people that hate that. They think that's so lazy and it's such a cheap way to get the fans perky. And I was a mixed bag. Some callbacks I thought were fine. Others I thought were really forced and lazy. It ends up sometimes becoming so reliant on them where I feel like if I just wasn't a big fan of those last two I Know What You Did Last Summers, this movie just would not mean much to me. If I'm going to straight up negatives though, I think there is a lot of conveniences and I don't want to say plot holes, but things that once you find out what's going on and who's actually behind the mask, you really start to question a lot of the movie. I know there were several instances when I was watching this where I was like, oh my god, these characters are so stupid. Do something, fight back. And other times the fisherman feels like they have Batman powers where they're on the floor for 1 second, you look and then they're disappeared 30 feet away. And so much of that modern aspect will turn some people off. I mean, there's even a character whose whole identity is she has a murder podcast, and she's essentially playing a version of us fans watching these movies, which I know those are things that happen in real life, but it's played up to such an extreme in this movie. I think also towards the end, the movie starts to lean so much more into that camp and cheese factor that it starts to become unbelievable or unrealistic, because at this point you're either in on the joke and enjoying the ride, or you've just completely disconnected from the film. And it's really all that stuff that leaves me so conflicted with the movie, because man, I want to talk about so bad the twist and the ending of this film, because there are things I really like about it, but it's more the execution and the way the movie went about it where I was like, dude, that could have been a really great idea, but I just don't think you did all the steps to get there. I saw people say whenever the first reviews were coming out that this is the best legacy sequel made of like a horror movie returning. I still don't think that is the case. Whether looking at Scream, Halloween, or Now I Know What You Did Last Summer, all of them have similar issues and problems with callbacks, plot points involving the legacy characters, trying to form their own identity. I think we have still yet to make the best legacy sequel. So while this will not be for everybody, I think the diehard fans will be the ones most amused, and at least it's way better than the third I Know What You Did Last Summer movie. So when it comes to I Know What You Did Last Summer, I'm gonna give action 3 stars. The initial setup and premise does take a while to get going, but once the first chase sequence happens and the fisherman is out there, I think those chase sequences are pretty well executed. Comedy in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. Admittedly, I think I'm gonna be kinder to the comedy than a lot of other people. Madeline Klein was just so funny to me, and I didn't mind some of the TikTok humor, so just know that the humor is very specific. Drama in the film, I think I am gonna give it 3.5 stars just for that final act and what the movie was trying to accomplish. I don't think it gets all the way there, but I think it's an interesting enough idea that'll actually make it stand apart from a lot of other legacy sequels, and I think that's honestly what I come out respecting most about this movie. Suspensive film, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars, since the movie does tend to do a good job of keeping you on your feet of who the fisherman is, when that person shows up, and the chase sequences is actually being kind of creative. It helps keep that suspense up. Horror in the movie, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. It does get brutal and violent, although it's not overly gory, but some of that modern humor does cut off those more impactful moments at certain times. When looking at the 3 C's, it's really hard to say because I just don't think a casual viewer into this universe will get as much of enjoyment with how reliant on the nostalgia and callbacks this film is. And a critic is for sure gonna tear this movie apart. I already see it on the Rotten Tomatoes score. I think I'm gonna have to give it a Cinephiles on default, but even they will be mixed on some of the aspects of this film. So really, look, I think if you're a fan of I Know What You Did Last Summer, this is a movie you will for sure be enjoying in theaters. But aside from its interesting idea with the killer of this movie, so much of it I still think feels bogged down in the formula of a legacy sequel. I'd recommend you'd rent it.
That'll do, Donkey. That'll do.
And again, that's just my opinion on the movie, guys. I am still a little torn, and maybe once I get to my spoiler review here on the channel, I'll be able to flesh out my thoughts more on whether I did really like it, or I more just respect what it was trying to do. Let me know what you thought about I Know What You Did Last Summer. Do you think it worked? If it didn't? And save your spoilery thoughts for when I post the spoiler video. But anything and everything, be sure and like, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at 3C Films, or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.